My diagnosis began in 2019. I was given a diagnosis of bipolar 2 as well as PTSD, and it began with a severe head trauma. I was actually very close to perception of mental illness diagnosis. I really thought that people that had mental illness had more of a control over how their mind processed the world. So my children were given mental illness diagnosis, and I thought that it was more of a situation that they could control with their mind. So I thought they could control that better than they were given an opportunity to, so I was very closed off about that. Now that I experience mental illness, it's a very different situation. I know now, and it was quite a learning experience, but I do know now that it is not something that you can just turn off and on. The diagnosis that I received in 2019 was precipitated by a severe head trauma that I had received in a car accident. And I noticed a severe change immediately. I noticed that I had began with quite a bit of crying. I wasn't being able to perceive the world as I had before. I didn't have the mental strength that I had before. It seemed like everything was a crisis immediately in my life, from the very smallest thing of dropping sugar on the counter to large things. So it didn't matter what had happened in my life. Everything was just a blown out of proportion crisis. Everything was quite difficult for me when I began having these symptoms. The symptoms were just blown out of proportion for me. More symptoms that I'd had as I began crying. First and foremost, everything was just reactionary to crying for me. I seemed to have like a hairline trigger to that. I was never mad about anything. Things that would make me mad before just never made me mad anymore. I broke down quite a bit, not just crying, but more into a depression. Everything was just such a traumatic experience for me. I quit eating. I had lost a tremendous amount of weight. So that was something that was quite concerning for me. I went from nearly 200 pounds down to about 118 pounds over a very short amount of time, approximately 4.5 to 5 months. And I wasn't able to function. I was not able to get out of bed. I wasn't able to leave my home. I almost became agoraphobic. And that was something that was really troubling to not just myself, but my family members, my children. It even affected my grandchildren, because I spent all my time with my grandchildren before and not able to go anywhere. I wasn't able to take them to the park anymore. I wasn't able to, take them to their swimming classes and different things that I'd enrolled them into. The biggest differences that I've noticed is my self-confidence. I had such an incredibly high self-confidence before the diagnosis. There wasn't anything in this world that I couldn't tackle. That has been the biggest thing that I've noticed, is there is so many things that I'm not able to, in my mind, accomplish anymore. I just feel like everything is such a huge battle for me. From the smallest things of even, like I said, getting out of the house, or even finding a job that I used to have before. It's so hard for me just to get out there and find the type of job I had before. Now I waitress, whereas before I worked in an office environment. I don't feel like I have the mental fortitude to even take on that type of role like I had before. It is an entirely huge difference. For me, it's easier to see other people smile, be able to just simply serve them food, than it is to take on the tasks of working in an office environment. I find myself getting confused. I don't have the memory capability that I had before. I lose track of where I'm at when I'm talking. I forget how to form words. I find myself losing the ability to form the words in my head where I want to go with my speaking like I just did. One of the biggest strengths that I've found is that I'm a lot nicer person than I used to be. I am so much nicer than I ever used to be. I forget what it's like to be overbearing. I used to be an incredibly overbearing person. The ability to get mad has changed me. No longer able to getting mad at things, I found that it's so much easier to almost empathize with people so much easier, and being able to understand what it's like to have a mental diagnosis and commiserate with others from where they're coming from, and being able to understand that people aren't trying to be any which way. I understand that it's difficult to navigate through life with a mental diagnosis and not trying to be a certain type of way. You know, I have that almost empathetic, I've walked in your shoes now type of perspective. So not being able to get mad or frustrated, I just don't. I have so much more patience with individuals of every walks of life. I'd like other people to know that we're people that only want to be cared for. We're people that are just like them. I think that a lot of people misjudge people with mental diagnosis. I think that we're perceived as individuals that walk around muttering to ourselves or aren't able to function. I think that we're misjudged in so many different ways. You know, I think that most people don't look at me as somebody with a mental diagnosis. I think that people look at me as this happy-go-lucky woman that used to be a nurse. I worked in the medical field for 16 years. And people ask me often, why aren't you in the medical field anymore? What they don't know is because that's not something that I'm able to handle anymore. It's not something that my brain can process anymore. It's not something that I choose not to do. It's something that I'm not able to do anymore. You know, so I wish people would just realize that when you have a mental illness diagnosis, it's not who we are. It's just simple as somebody that has diabetes. Mm-hmm. It's as simple as somebody that has, you know, gout, or somebody that has to take heart medication. Mm-hmm. We're just like everybody else. It's just that our ailments are in our brain. The biggest encouragement that I can give somebody who is about to be diagnosed with a mental illness or has been diagnosed with a mental illness is that you're okay. It's okay for you to accept that diagnosis or to accept the diagnosis that you're about to have, because you are just as whole as anybody that you're about to meet or anybody that you have met. You are an individual that is loving, that is caring, that is okay to have frustrations, that is okay to feel like you have taken 2 steps back, but you're going to take 3 or 4 steps forward. It's okay to feel like you're having a bad day, and it's okay to have good days too, and it's okay to embrace this diagnosis, because like I previously said, it is no different than somebody that has been diagnosed with an ailment in, you know, in their bodies. It's just that our ailment has been diagnosed in our brain. You know, if you have to take medication to keep your heart healthy or to keep your pancreas healthy with diabetes, or if you have to take a medication because your thyroid's not working, or, you know, whatever it is, It's just that our brain needs a little bit of help as well. And that's the only difference. We're still okay. We're whole. We're as whole as anybody else around you that you'll meet or have met. I wish the world would know that I'm a person like them, and that we're all loving and beautiful and made in the image of whoever they believe in or whatever they believe in. I'm as individual as they are, and I have dreams and I have hopes, and I have just as much to work on and to look forward to, and I am as human as they are. I miss nursing incredibly. That's my goal. That's who I am in life, is I love people. I enjoy working with people. I think that's why I do waitressing so well, is because working with people is something that I love. I love making people happy. Making people happy in my world is, like I've always told people, if you're old or you're a child or you're an animal, those are the three things in the world that make me happy. So that's what I primarily worked with, was children and the elderly. Yeah. I love working with the children that come into the restaurant where I work. They're beautiful. And I always end up talking the parents into, I work at a Mexican food restaurant, and I always talk the parents into buying the kids sopapillas. It's fantastic.
That's great.
Yeah, they do. The kids love me. The parents are like, okay, here's a really big tip because you made the kids happy, and it works out. And the kids give me hugs when they leave, and the people I work with, they're like, oh, is that your family? I'm like, no, they're not. They're just little kids that adore me. I get along with kids. Kids and animals just absolutely love me. It's really cool because usually the families are like, that baby doesn't like anybody but us, and here's the baby all hugs.
Cute.
It is adorable. I love it.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
And animals, do you have any pets?
I used to have quite a few pets before I live where I live here now in Greeley. And so my next goal is, when I move from where I'm at now and I can live in a dwelling where I have free to have animals, my next animal will be a kitty cat. Yeah, because I love their little purrs, the way they knead on you and stuff. That just hits my heart.
Oh,
So I just think people with mental illness are beautiful for being able to come forth and share their experiences. I've learned so much, you know, that people with mental illness are just like me. My daughter and my son, I have 3 children, and I have 2 of which that suffer from types of schizophrenia. I have one that has paranoid delusional schizophrenia and one that has schizoaffective with depression. And so I was in deep denial with those diagnoses before I was diagnosed with mental illness myself. And so I feel like my diagnosis has really helped me to become closer to them and to help them and to give me the opportunity to be a better parent and to be a better type of resource and a better type of, I can't think of the word, a better type of person for them to lean on. You know, somebody that they're able to talk to freely without judgment. Whereas before I didn't give them that opportunity, and it was really hard for me to understand them, whereas now it is so much easier, and I feel so much better about being able to be there for them. I feel like I'm such a better parent for them. It's fantastic. And like I said, I'm able to empathize with them so much better, and it brings us closer. And they just have so much gratitude for me. And I almost feel like it's something from my higher power that has brought us closer. You know, at first I was very resentful, like, why me? Whereas now it's a blessing to me. And I appreciate that.